Hello, everybody. Good morning. So I will start, first of all, welcome to this session, and we'll be talking about NIS2. I will start by presenting myself. I am a doctor in law, certified data protection officer. I work in France. I work also with the Middle East, and I'm very happy to have Professor Jacques Folon and Professor Ahmed Fawzy. I will start by presenting Professor Jacques Folon. He has an extensive experience in data protection, more than 20 years. He is the author of more than 20 books. And I know, personally, I know the Guide pratique du RGPD, which is updated each year. And he founded the scientific director of Successful DPO, certificate for public and private sector. He is also a weekly columnist in the Belgian newspaper Le Soir, and he's the vice president of DPO Pro in the Belgian Federation of DPOs. He was Privacy Person of the Year nominee in 2024. So I will give you the word. So I will present Mr. Ahmed first, and I will give you the, the word after that. So Mr. Ahmed is a cybersecurity expert in the field. He's specialized in the field of supporting the global InfoSec community. He's a managing director of iExperts, and he works between the United Kingdom, Egypt, and the Middle East. So he will also be talking to us about the risk management, the incident response, and how to implement the EU legislations in the Middle East. I will give you the word so you can present your slides. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I'm standing because I'm used to do it as an academic. Sorry. First thing is, this is the overview of these numerous EU legislation. The slide is very famous. Because we're speaking today about NIS2 and others, but the problem is that there are so many others. By the way, those who want to have the slides, I could send you to avoid to have pictures. But if you do want to have pictures, please do. But the question is there, if you just look from GDPR 2016, since then, there's so many additional copyright directive, EDS, Digital Market Act, Data Act, there was a conference about that yesterday, and so on, which raise a big problem for governance, for companies. And if you just think about the fact that it's extremely complicated to explain to the companies that they just have to be compliant to GDPR, when you arrive now saying, by the way, there is some other things, it's quite complicated. And just to give you a story which happened yesterday, I'm coming from Belgium, and I made a presentation to the board of one of the ministry in Belgium, and I prepared it with the DPO. And we have the half an hour to present an idea of governance for this ministry, including just 3 things: GDPR, NIS2, and AI Act. And we were presenting that during half an hour, explaining the need for governance. And the answer of the chairman of the ministry was, "Thank you. Next point." That's it. And there was no follow-up. But maybe I was not convincing enough. But I think I know that the DPO tries to get... And that's the problem, is that it's quite complicated for organization to handle that and to put that in practice. Another point is you have same words, different language. Just think about data. The definition of data is different from one directive or regulation to another one. Portability doesn't mean the same thing in all the directives. If you have a data breach, the period to declare it to the authority is not the same. If you have a data breach with personal data, including a piece of AI, and you are supposed to have an NIS2, 3 different authorities, 3 periods for declaration. I'm not sure that is funny. But, well, you may. And the first time we saw it, we laughed. The question is that we have to handle that, which is a problem. The problem of the local authority, and let's say the local authorities, but I didn't find a slide with authorities, plural. But the problem is, each country will decide who is in charge of these legislation. And they decide alone. And of course, there is internal lobby, by instance for AI, because you have the data protection authority said, well, there will be data, personal data, which means that we have to do it. Then you have, of course, other authorities. And in some country, they said, well, maybe it's interesting to create another one. And the problem is that, how do you handle that? And I think Jason Pollock was probably the inspiration of the different government. Because when you check the relationship between the authority, I just give an example, I'm sorry for the French who are in the room, but that is the regulation of AI in France. Try to understand it. But for the Belgian, I'm quite sure, because in France it's a very centralized country. One government, sort of for the moment. Sorry. Well, Belgium has still the Guinness Book of Records with the timing without government, which is more than 500 days, which means it's clear we don't have any criticize for the French. But the fact is, in Belgium now, we have 5 governments, 3 regions, 2 communities, and so on and so forth, which means I'm quite sure that we will do something more complicated. But I think for the organization, it's quite complicated to know how to do it and how to handle that. Next question, who is in charge? Within the organization. Because they are the new regulation. Of course, you have the lawyer, the internal lawyer, the general secretary who says to the board, yes, well, there is a new regulation. Okay. And what do we have to do? And who is in charge? And as far as all these regulations are joining and have relationship, this also is a problem. And of course, the first idea is, well, we have a DPO, data protection officer. I could do that. When you think about the fact that the French Association of DPO opened 2 years ago a telephone line for psychological help for DPO, it's real.
That's right, because we're so much frustrated that we need psychological assistance.
There is so many resignation for DPO. Because they try to do it and nobody listened to them and then finally they quit. And the question is, who is in charge? And what happens for the moment? You have, of course, the DPO who is in charge of GDPR. You have a CISO or an IT guy in charge of security, NIS2 and so on. You have a geek saying, well, I take care of AI. Please do. And these people are not speaking together.
And there is the board, if you permit. There is the CEO who wants the money. How to get it fast using AI.
Yeah, also.
So the businessman.
And that's the main problem. And we have the usual suspect. Of course, we claim DPO, clearer, CISO, IT, HR, because I heard something about the necessity of having a training for AI. That's HR. Of course, they didn't do it. Geek, consultant. Problem, of course, in many countries in Europe, there is a limitation of budget, and the first victim are the consultants, which means it's quite complicated also for the moment. And it's sometimes painful because you try to convince, even if you are internally or externally, try to convince your customers, if you are, as myself, consultant, try to convince them that they have to do something. That AI Act already started, that the training, the literacy training has to be done. By the way, there is supposed to be a GDPR training each year. Just to see who has received in his company a GDPR training this year. Okay, interesting. It's mandatory. So, And the main problem, I think, is not a question of procedures, because many consultants and internal people taking care of that, they just start to put procedures. And what is the first reflex of somebody facing a procedure? Trying to bypass. Which means you put a procedure, they try to bypass, then you put another procedure, try to bypass, and you have more and more procedures. They are all on the intranet of the company, the place where nobody goes. But the procedures are there, which means we are ready for control. If the data protection authority of somebody, we have the procedure. So, and does it work? Did you check it? And that's amazing. There is one slide missing. No, this one. That's the other way. That is. No, well, there's words I hate personally. This one, without prejudice. What does it mean? We, EU authorities, we decide to do something. We know that it's problematic if you compare to others. Just do it. Without prejudice. Which means that, okay, we have to respect all this legislation, which comes from different areas of the EU Commission. Sometimes these people doesn't speak together. And then you have to take care of that. Without prejudice. I hate that. By the way, we have also something which is interesting sometime in the discourse we could have to the board, is that we are there to protect data. Also to protect personal data. And sometimes people are interested in the fact that, well, it could be also their data. But sometimes you find some legislation which are strange. I don't know if you hear about chat control, but it's not really something interesting for... So, last slide. It's a sort of Sisyphus method. I'm quite sure you mean it. We are a sort of Sisyphus. And the fact is, why are we doing that? Are we all masochists? That's a winning question. The fact is that we know that it's complicated, but we love to do it. And like Sisyphus, I think, is supposed to be happy, like Camus is saying. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacques. So now we will have the presentation of Ahmed. And here the slider, in case you need it.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Today, when we speak about the NIS2, it is, as Professor Jacques said, it is not just NIS2. We have a lot of legislations, a lot of acts that we have to follow, we have to adhere. Again, it is not just a certificate that you will get and say that I am compliant. No, it is law. With agreed penalties, some of these penalties will lead to shut down the business. Even outside the EU, if you are working or delivering some services inside the EU, you have to respect the regulation. Let's say here that we will start with the NIS2 that got new extensions and extended the covering for not just the essential services. No, it is including now a lot of important services like the service providers, cloud service providers, digital services providers. Behind that, there is another regulations. What we want to say here today, the relationships and all the story here will be how you, as a compliance manager, as a CISO, as GRC consultant for your customer, make mapping between these regulations and a very strong information security program, a very strong GRC program to build a great building, to build a great building and respect the changes in the world. Now, let's ask a question here. If one of the finance department persons, accountants, finance analysts, get some financial sensitive data and uploaded this data to any GPT to any AI agent that is outside the EU. That is outside the company. It is internal data, or we can call it here sensitive data, confidential data, labeled as confidential data, and uploaded it to make some sort of analysis or get some graphs or something like that. Who will blame him? You will blame him? If you will start to blame him or her and ask, why did you upload this sensitive data for this platform without getting authorization? Maybe the most common answer in this case will say, who said it's forbidden? Who said? Did you give me awareness? And did you tell me that it's preventive? To that, or it is not allowed, or it must be controlled. Yesterday we had a great discussions with our colleagues, fine, that refer for the AI risk and having AI without being managed. Manage everything, then start to use. Let's manage the AI before use. So because of that, we have the AI Act that is already enforced and already in place. We have also DORA. DORA, Digital Operational Resilience Act, and we have here 5 pillars. Some of them are shared with NIS2. Risk management, third-party risk management, incident reporting, the testing, digital resilience testing, including the vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, and of course information sharing. So when we speak about DORA, we have a great shared party. A great shared part with NIS2. Of course, that will be reflected with AI, that will be reflected somehow with GDPR. I think, Prof. Jacques, you referred here, maybe one data breach resulted in many violations, 3 violations. Let's have one example here happened in the UK. I was in Heathrow, waiting my airplane as usual. I was waiting in the lounge, waiting. It was 2018, September 2018, fine. So I discovered that on the BBC News that we have a data breach. I was one of the customers that lost my credit cards on this BA apps. So data breach happened for British Airways that reflected in industrial standard and one regulation. That reflected in the GDPR, and British Airways was in the exposure of paying around 500 millions of pounds, 4% of the revenue of last year. But because they reported on time and they made everything well, fine. So it was here, fine. I think they paid 183 pounds as a penalty. So at the end, they closed some credit card, PCI breach, PCI DSS, and personal data.
And they learned the hard way.
Of course. Of course. And before and above that, everybody say British Airways got hacked. Frankly, no. British Airways didn't get hacked. Do you know why? Because it was offshore. Like you mentioned, it was outside of Europe, offshore company that developed, managed the software, the mobile applications that you use, Tamara. When you try to book a trip to the UK, you are using British Airways. You downloaded it from the App Store as British Airways. However, it's not British Airways. It's offshore company.
Subcontracting to another.
Yes. Third party risk. But at the end of the day, when you got hacked, nobody will say the third party of British Airways got hacked. No, everybody will say British Airways got hacked. Take care of your third party. So because of this, it is not a surprise for me to see DORA today. DORA is very important. However, DORA is for financial sectors. You understand me? The exposure of DORA for 22,000 of institutes in Europe, and the exposure of NIS2 is more than 160,000 of company inside the EU. So never forget that, of course, also the Data Act nowadays. So I think today we will discuss with Tamara and Dr. Jacques how we can find a solution to make mapping. Yes, we have some solutions to make mapping by having this strong GRC, so maybe we can discuss.
And also, we need to emphasize on the fact that finally the prejudice, as Jacques said, is all of us. So it is the final user who is the client. So there is a prejudice somewhere, and we need to take action. So we start by the awareness. What I want to start saying is that there are lots of legislations. So I will start with Jacques. How to familiarize the companies and the organizations with the legislation concerning data in Europe? And how can we practically be compliant? Because there are lots of text, lots of legislations, and even lots of authorities in the same entity. Within the Union, European Union, there are lots of authorities and forces on the ground. How can we practically advise organizations to be compliant?
But there's one slide which disappeared in my presentation, in which you have an image of somebody saying, "What's in it for me?" And I think that's the main point, is that you have to speak to board members or CEO with their concerns. And I think sometimes I see some presentation which says, okay, explaining what the regulation is. And then the CEO said, okay, who cares? I remember it was, well, in 2018, the European CEO of L'Oréal said during presentation about GDPR, says, what is the return on investment of GDPR? This is a good question. Following Mario Draghi, it costs $10 million per big company. Which means that you have to speak to them and try to convince that there should be a global data governance. And that's something they could hear, explaining that, of course, this is quite complicated, but data governance is essential to create a sort of a board with some executives, people from the business, people from HR, people from IT, general secretary, those sort of people, in order to first identify. And yesterday there was a lot of speaking about risk. What are the risks, practically, for not respecting that? And what's in it for me, for the board? Remember the exercise we made in the other room yesterday morning. What is it for me? And if you are thinking about what these people are thinking, then you could convince them. But of course, I don't have the solution. And I hope that if somebody has, I think we will all be very happy to share it. Because it's quite complicated. It depends from one company to another one. And it's long term. Just to finish, think about the fact that GDPR is there since 2018. Just a question. Raise your hand if your company is 100% GDPR compliant.
100%. It's a very difficult
sure?
Statistics. That's a good point.
Because normally I propose a bit of 12 bottles of champagne. But you see, nobody raised his hand.
Thank you, Jacques. For Ahmed, what do you think about the outside Europe companies? How can they be compliant?
Regarding the companies outside Europe, they also must respect all the regulations. Fine. So all the regulations, and it's not just NIS2. No, we have to respect GDPR, AI Act, Data Act, and so on. For all, and as you see, let's see a practical case. It happened with a call center, offshore call center in Asia that was providing some services in Europe. Without considering the GDPR, what happened for this company? It got a penalty of 20 million euros, the penalty of the GDPR. Why? Because they are violating the using of the personal data in GDPR. This can be happened with
people.
Yes, of European citizens, European residents inside Europe. If you are outside Europe providing the service, and this will happen. This will happen. By the way, we are helping a lot of service providers too that are outside Europe, how they can provide the service inside Europe through being compliant, through respecting the GDPR. So let's be GDPR compliant. And they are asking, some of them asking about a certificate. Fine. However, again, it's practical. Like Dr. Jacques, when you said, fine, raise your hand if you are 100% compliant with GDPR. Of course, nobody 100% compliant because it's a law. When you drive a car here, you have to respect a law. So you will not get a certificate that I am respecting a law. You have to respect this law without here getting this certification. The same for NIS2. Maybe some questions here. Very important question here. NIS2 applying penalty for was 10 millions of euros. If you are working in the essential sector, 7 millions of euros if you are in the important service. What if one of the service provider important services outside of Europe violated the NIS2? Is the penalty will be applied? Of course, the penalty will be applied. With the same, in the same sector, for example, service provider, important, so it will be 7 million. And one of the obligations here, extremely important, that you have to assign EU representative. You have to have...
Of course, as per GDPR, each company has to have, even if she's not implemented in Europe, she has, if she's selling products or dealing with info related to European citizens, she must have a representative in, as data protection officer representative.
Without a doubt.
Now, the matter is that data protection can differ from sensitive data can differ from a nation to another. For example, for the French people, having the bank details is a sensitive data. I don't know about Egyptian people. I don't think it's a sensitive data. For example, for other people, for other nations or countries, this could not be sensitive data. So that's why we are going back to the point that Jacques talked about. It is how to spread awareness among people, because if Air France is opening a call center in Egypt or in India, perhaps the people there doesn't treat bank details as personal data.
No, I was in a great implementation for
GDPR.
For
that's why we need
and
to...
the full respect must be in place without a doubt. Why? Because this is a responsibility. It was for airline, very famous for airline.
The call centers.
Yeah,
because it's less cost.
At the end of the day, 100% of all that I am speaking here about the respect and not the compliance of the respect level for GDPR. If it is in Europe, it will be outside. Otherwise, all the blaming will go, because again in GDPR it is shared between both the controller and the processor, so it's shared responsibility. So no, they are respecting 100%. And nowadays we have an equivalent AI law in all countries. In Saudi Arabia, we have PDPL. In Dubai, in United Arab Emirates.
Yes, because we're obliged to comply, even though we're
in Egypt. We have in every country nowadays. In Argentina, in Canada, in Brazil. I think worldwide we have.
Yes, of course.
Yes, to be equivalent.
Jacques, what do you think about what Ahmed said regarding the compliance worldwide?
Well, the one point is interesting also, as what within many points it was interesting, of course, but one thing I think is problematic is the responsibility in the choice of the processor on your suppliers. Because many companies, they try to find a supplier, discuss about the price, they post about the product, and they don't go further to the audit there about their security and the security of the sub-processor and so on and so forth. And that is something problematic. And it's one case interesting, just to give you one example in Belgium, which has, of course, influence in Europe, is that the Council of State in Belgium consider that a public service has to check GDPR compliance of the supplier. And the Council of State destroy a market just because of that. They said you have to cancel your contract because it didn't check.
In France too. And nowadays, the French authorities are giving certifications to certain entities like ANSSI so that people are certified cybersecurity compliant, and so we can deal with them. So also I will ask Jacques now about the evolution of the role of the data protection officer in 2026 facing GDPR, NIS2, AI Act, and so many other legislations.
But I think the DPO has an interesting role because he's used to have to do risk analysis, and there is sometimes a difference that people didn't understand within the organization is the two main risk analyses. If you discuss with the CISO, he will think about a risk analysis about the infrastructure, about the software. If you discuss with the DPO, he will discuss about a risk analysis about the personal
Legal,
data to protect the data of the people, which is totally different. And these things has to be done together. And of course, DPO seems to be the usual suspect to start, but clearly, if we don't want to have a suicide or the nervous breakdown for all DPOs, they could not do everything, which means they have to be there in a governance board, whatever the name could be, with others like IT, HR,
the software developer,
to create that
the finance department.
To create that governance. But he should be a part of it, clearly, but not the only one. And that was the conclusion of the conference of the CDPO last year, that, okay, he has to be there, clearly, but certainly not be the responsible for all these regulations.
Thank you, Jacques. Ahmed, what do you think about this matter? Because you, from the perspective of NIT cybersecurity, how can you handle the DPO role?
Of course, nowadays, I suggest here very important roadmap. Maybe we can discuss. To make sure here that this is your provider or your DPO here. They are respecting the GDPR by building something like this. You can see, so you can make a great mapping here. Between all of these acts, I understand 100%, which is mean that when you go to ISO 27001, you are not compliant by default with NIS2, for example, or something like this. But this NIS2, and this is the secret for the DPO, to build a great GRC program by building here management system, a great management system. Based on this management system, we have many disciplines like ISO 27001, ISO 22301, the business continuity. Both of them, they can help you to achieve and to be around. We can say that is the similarity between 27001, 22301, and the NIS2 and DORA requirements around plus from 80 to 90%, considering that maybe we have another requirements for DORA or something like this. Maybe you need here to be tolerated here for this compliance. But at the end of the day, when you go to, for example, here was 42,000, you will respect here the AI Act, the Data Act, the 27701, the Privacy Information Management System. So this is the solution here. And as Dr. Jacques said, don't depend on your service providers that they are telling you, we are good, we are great. We have all of this certification. No, go to audit them by SOC 2 audit report. SOC 2 audit report and external eye that will make SOC 2 type 2. Type 2, which is mean equivalent, which means that I'm auditing you here, for every from 6 to 12 months to make sure that you are really compliant.
The recurrence is essential also in the auditing. It's not a one-time intervention. It must be recurrent. By the way, in France, for example, the authorities are helping organizations through a method related to French local laws, like EBIOS Risk Manager. So they are starting to simplify the words in order to make it reachable to all companies, even if they don't have the budget. Why? Because we have essential or organismes d'importance vitale. Some with the NIS2, we had 8 sectors. Now we are 12 sectors involved, and we need to be compliant. So in this field, we talked about the management responsibility. Jacques, do you want to add to Ahmed?
There's maybe one thing what was said yesterday during the game on the other side is don't give too much importance to certification. How many days is a certification valid? 1 day. 1 day.
Because
The next day, you have all the security team leaving, and it's finished.
Let's celebrate.
Don't take it for granted that you have an ISO 27001 dated for 6 months ago. That is perfect. You have to check it. Certification has a certain value. Of course, they did something, but
the bases are
what
here.
happens yesterday?
But the continuity
what is the continuity?
is the key.
Yeah. And that's the main problem. I think that when you make a risk analysis and people say, well, I have an ISO 27001. Great. Okay. When? What is the framework? What was the audit? And is
on
it
which
still valid
applications
now?
and data?
Yeah.
Because also the company is evolving. So the data is evolving, the needs are evolving, and the market is evolving. That's why we don't want to stay behind, and I will give the word to Ahmed. One of the biggest changes in NIS2 is the emphasis on supply chain security. What steps should organizations take to assess and secure their third-party vendors? We talked about third-party.
Yeah, totally agree. I cannot agree more that maybe some organization here, once we got the certification today, let's celebrate. Let's go to sleep. Fine, everybody leave. Fine, and that's all. So, but at the end of the day, the audit here, it will be very important here. In addition to that, to answer this question here, extremely important question. And this question here, I think it is one of the pillars in DORA. And third party, and the examples that we have shared with the British Airways, it also tools here something related to the problems here of third party management. What is the solution? The solution is GRC. Great GRC, of course, you have to audit this GRC program. Don't trust that just your third party here providing you with a certificate and say, I'm compliant, let's send this certification in the offer or in the technical proposal. No, you have to audit them and make sure, and this is also a solution for a previous answer, the role of the DPO. It's became very difficult now. But again, the solution, it is one management system. Let's build here this GRC, strong GRC. Do you know this GRC? It's something like these buildings. Actually, I don't know if you visited pyramids before or no. Fine. But again, it is a building. Can you tell me, please, what will happen for these pyramids if I destroyed one of these cornerstone, the compliance? What will happen for the pyramids? Collapse. Yes, I saw many collapsed programs in information security collapsed program. They are making activities not aligned, not managed. Let's see the other cornerstone here. It's risk management. Usually I give an example in my courses. And a compliance manager, DBO, information security manager, without risk management, it is like a doctor that will make a surgical operation for a patient and say, I'm so sorry, I forgot all my surgeon tools at home. Let me try to do it by my hand. Fine. Are you kidding me, doctor? Are you joking me? This is a joke. It's like the information security manager that trying here to manage without a great risk management. One of the pillars, actually it is two pillars inside DORA. Risk management, in generic risk management inside for third parties. In addition to NIS2 as well, it is risk management. So you have to have, before have this upper stones, governance, setting directions and objectives, you have to build here two cornerstones, the compliance and the risk management.
That's why in France now for nowadays we ask to have registre des sous-traitants. So this is the register of all the subcontractors of a company. It is very difficult to collect all the contracts signed with any other company, and to visit each company to, we will give time for questions at the end of the, so that's why we're saying that AI is essential, awareness is essential, risk management is also an important matter, but if we don't sit around a table and talk about our needs and obligations, we won't be compliant. And I will end the session with my question to Jacques. You are close to the decision process in Brussels. Will the Draghi report and the Omnibus project of the EU Commission really change the EU legal framework?
Nobody knows. 1 year ago, there's Mr. Draghi is having a report concerning the competitivity innovation in Europe. And he pointed what everybody knows, too much legislation, and which is the main problem for Europe. If you just think about the main actors of AI, there's nearly nobody in Europe, and that's one of the main what is amazing in the Draghi report is that he made an assumption of the cost of GDPR. And he said it is 10 million euro for big companies and 500,000 euro for small companies. With my company, we are working for many SMEs. I should have been very happy to invoice 500,000 euro. I think it's totally strange. There was a report made a few days ago by the Belgian authority, the Belgian Federation of Enterprise, the Fédération des Entreprises Belges, and pointing the fact that the Draghi report was 1 year ago and nobody was done. They just launched the so-called omnibus project in order to simplify. The only thing they did up to now was trying to change 2 things in GDPR, and not the good one. Nobody cares about the register. Going to 250 people to 750, it's a bad decision, because it's really important, especially for SMEs, to understand their processing, which means it's stupid. Second, small caps, nobody cares, except the small caps. And the main problem is that it's an open door in the EU Parliament, because GDPR will arrive in the EU Parliament, and then you'll see Google, Meta, and so on coming and trying to simplify it. And that's maybe the main problem. For the rest, well, the idea to simplify it is interesting, but for the time being, after 1 year, we didn't see quite many changes.
We are realizing that also authorities are encouraging people, European citizens, to get back to local solutions in order to avoid mass catastrophic results. Tell me, Ahmed, what do you think about what said Jacques?
I totally agree that nowadays we are in the stage of drafting the laws of NIS2, because NIS2 is a directive, so it must be reflected in a law. So in France nowadays they are making something great. I think that we had a discussion about this. They are developing here a law that will cover DORA and NIS2. And I think also in Spain they have specific law for cybersecurity still under draft, it's under development. So in this era, or in this stage now, we as a companies, or we as DBOs, CISOs and so on, we have to consider, understand here these directives and let's apply inside your organization. So once the law is available now, fine, or once the law got enforced, you will be ready. I think that you must start from now, even they still under development.
Okay, thank you. I will give the word to the audience in case there are questions.
Could you have a mic to the gentleman there?
Thank you.
Thank you. There?
Second.
No, behind. Thank you.
Thank you for your insights. It was a lovely discussion. I've been working in third-party risk management, and I've also been researching the topic that you have been talking about, and I had 2 questions. One is on TPRM itself. So I've come across, when assessing the suppliers to a bank, we also found that procurement usually does not account for the number of contracts, because each contract is viewed individually, and it is individually for each department. So you end up having 4 contracts with the same supplier but across departments, and that is not considered in the prioritization of vendors. So how do you see, because I see supply chain security an important aspect of DORA and NIS2, how do you see that evolve in a TPRM program for organizations that are not looking at this? And another question, not related, is how do you see, when we talk about privacy by design and collaboration between departments, especially in security and privacy, How do you see geopolitical impacts, work with threat intelligence, and zero trust affecting roles? Because we are looking at it from like not people. So how is it going to affect the people?
I think we need an additional hour. Just to try to be quick, and then I can give you back the floor. For the first question, maybe I'll let you for the second because you're more. What is really important is that we have one supplier with many tasks, risk analysis for each processing, clearly. And what is the risk for each processing? Because even if you have the same supplier, and just to give you an example, you are working with maybe a big telecom operator. Well, you have a lot of certification, 27.1, whatever. Okay. And he signed a processing contract with security measures. Great. For that very specific processing? No. And that is the problem, is that of course, we have to have that processing contract and receive their certification, but we have to check the risk for each of them, which means if, to take your example, you have 4, 5, 6 different processing with the same supplier, you have to make a risk analysis for each of them, which the risks are for each of them, on top of the global contract, and maybe to have an addendum of the contract for each of these specific processing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Jacques, for this great answer. Because actually, what if there is a problem here happened with this? If there is something shared between two departments, to which contract we will adhere? So I think what you have suggested is the greatest solution for that. Regarding the second question, my answer is very easy. It is SAPSA, based on Zachman framework. If you are speaking here about privacy by design, security by design, or you have to include the zero trust and everything, my direct advice here is to consider TOGAF, of course, TOGAF or SAPSA model. This is the solution. It is in the architecture here. When we go, everything can be solved here in the conceptual layer. I think we have here Jeff, one of the subject matter experts in SAPSA. Fine. We had a conversation about this topic yesterday. So if you solve everything from architecture before you build the solution, fine, in the preparation for the design, I think you can include everything. However, we are speaking here, I think this is not related too much to NIS2 or not related too much to NIS2. However, it is supporting to include it in the architecture. Thank you.
Question. The third row, please.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Mohammed Omar from Beyond Cyber Skills. My question is, in the beginning when we heard about the GDPR, it was like everyone was talking about it all the time. I see that now. Like people talk less about it, and there's also another thing. ISO 27001 is very, very famous. Everyone talk about it all the time. But the other one, ISO 27701, like we see it like it's a bit dying. My question is it true or is it just a feeling? Thank you.
Jacques?
Well, the fact that when you are speaking, just to give you an example of, a few days ago, I met the CEO of a company for which we are working, and I came across in the hall, and he said, "You're still there?" I said, "Why? But GDPR is finished." He said, "No, and probably after I die, there will be somebody else doing it." The fact is that for many people, well, it's something from the past. They don't realize. You still having companies starting to put things on LinkedIn saying, we are looking for a DPO to start GDPR now. Which means, and for the certification, in fact, I think more and more people realize that it's not, let's say, the Graal. Well, you could have it, it's interesting, it means that you have something. NIS2 is something interesting too, but it's not absolute. And I think that is let's say the philosophy is that more and more people think about that well, they have to do something, and there is no one certification fits all for everything. I hope I answer your question.
That's why the French authorities started to, a long time ago, to reprocess the rules in a way in order to be compliant with ISO, the local rules, and the European Union. And that's why the NIS2 wasn't being able to get into force in October 2024. It was supposed to enter into force, but there is a project of law now in front of the Parliament in order to also conciliate all the authorities' competencies, because we cannot work solely. That's why it must have one direction, and they shouldn't step on the foot of the others. So that's why we saw with the map that Jacques showed, we saw that in function of the data that has been treated, each authority will be competent or not. So they did a segregation of duties between authorities.
Just one word, the problem is also that the different countries in Europe are not going the same direction, especially with directive. The difference between regulation and directive, regulation is the same text for everybody. Directive has to pass to the local parliament. And some countries, like France, sometimes forget that they are in Europe, which means that they are doing something which is interesting, it's totally different from other countries.
Thank you, Jacques. I will give the word to Ahmed. Do you have something to add?
It's very sad to hear something like that, but this is human nature. You can see now everybody started to forget COVID-19. We started to flying and we started to meet each other without masks. So this is a human nature. So what can give me a guarantee that this management system, the PIMS 27701, will continue again? It is inside the business continuity management system itself. It's inside the management system itself. The PDCA plan, do, check, act. Plan, do, check, act. Check here, it's including internal audit management review. So I think this is referring for what you have mentioned, Dr. Jacques, when we say that when we audit third party, for example, we have to audit them to make sure that they are making the surveillance audit by making the internal audit and real management review. They found here some non-conformities and enhance. So I will never trust this certificate, this paper, without the audit here, to make sure it will not die, because we will be very sad it will be die. But the new things, the new acts nowadays maybe cover the GDPR a little bit. Yeah, thank you.
The first one who asked for the question, can you give the micro for the third row?
I have just
you have a micro.
waited in line. I was thinking I'm the first, but it looked like I'm the last. No problem. I'll stand up. I'm mentor, actually. I have a few comments. First, I think small clarification about implementation, about actually how it's implemented when we talk about act and regulation or directly implemented in EU members. Second, when we talk about directive, this is guidelines. That's the reason we can see different approach from different states. That is normal. That is normal. We need to clarify that. And about implementation, about other states, normally if you are in some way engaged with citizens' data of EU, then you are engaged and you need to apply GDPR, NIS, and etc. This is just small comments. Second, you have already mentioned something about ISO standard 271, especially. I cannot agree that it's one day. Because everybody as a consultant and everybody who is doing implementation audit, they know you need to implement that 3-6 months. Before the audit, you prepare a month. Just audit, it's 5 days, 7 days, depend on the organization. And it's actually, we are too much simplifying it's one day. And in the end, we have
I said it's the validity is one day. Not the preparation.
No, the validity.
The next day, you have all your security team leaving. It's over.
Sorry, let me explain. Because we need 1 hour. But validity is 3 years, and you have external audit each year.
Each year?
Each year you have validation.
You have 1 year between.
Yeah, but between 1 year you have internal audit, you have objectives, you have implementation, and first of all the ISO standards are risk-based approach. Yeah, I was thinking what we're talking about. This is the risk-based approach. And
so what is your question?
Yes, Yeah, this was a comment.
Go for it.
Yeah, we are seeing. We have seen and we notice we have a lot of regulation laws that we need to implement. We need to apply as we and consultant. When we go to the board CEO, actually, they say why we're doing this. Is this actually too much regulation? This regulation actually not helping us growing, because we see the companies that they are growing very fast in China, Africa, US, and we have and Elon Musk said we have too much regulation, and when we see actually from I want this different approach. If Europe actually with this lot of laws actually restraining from growing the companies, this is becoming a problem to grow. We have law.
So sorry, but what is your question?
Yeah, the question is,
because
do we have too much
report,
regulation? Do we have too much regulation on this? And is this really getting the problem from growing the companies? This is a question that we need to answer and to the CEOs. Thank you.
That's the Draghi report. Because of the competitiveness, we need to grow, but we need also to simplify certain.
There was one sentence for Angela Merkel. They said she was at the Davos a few years ago when she was chancellor, and she was speaking just after Zuckerberg. And he said that's great because America is doing so great things, and China is developing industrial things, and in Europe we have GDPR. That's it.
But we also have,
and the difference, and you are perfectly right, the difference between one country to another one.
Because the European Union is protecting its citizens in first place, and the innovation is at the cost.
Yeah, US,
that's why.
US innovate, Europe regulate.
we don't need to stop the innovation, but we need.
Of course,
that's the right balance.
Yeah, one comment on the gentleman here. When you said everywhere is risk management, yes, I agree. Everywhere is risk management. Totally agree here, because risk management is a tool. Regarding here, your point here, when you said the certifications be valid with 1 day or 365 of days, fine. You answered it by saying it is depend on the organization. It's depend on the activities, real management review, internal audit, non-conformances. Somebody got hired, not just a consultant that worked for 3 or 6 months, then left. When we sees him or her inside the organization, while you are here now, after we got the certification, and answers this question. So it is depend on the organization. And thank you for your participation.
Is there any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, please. The fourth row.
Yes, please. Thank you. Walid Charfi. I am wondering about the key steps for multinationals to address the divergence of regulations according to data localizations when we have sites all over the world in the 5 continents, and between APAC and Europe and US regulations and requirements related to data privacy and data localization. Thank you.
Jacques, we wanted to talk about taxonomy.
Yeah, I think it's not an additional hour. I think it's 1 day session. But the relation between EU and US, we are for the moment in something which is surrealistic, because we have the Commission saying that everything is okay, that we even have the EU tribunal, which is completely surprising, saying the contrary to the Court of Justice, saying that it is perfectly okay. And to have a precise answer to your question, the problem will come when the court case is. If you have a court case in the US, it will be handled following the US law. If it's Europe, following the European law, and probably there will be contradictory issues. That's part of the game. Since internet, we have a global network which is worldwide, and we have local national law, which is always the case, especially there too. Plus something on top, which there will be difference within the EU countries, even with the same directive. Which means you will, and you already had, and we had that for the previous directive on privacy, in which you had in different countries different and contradictory decisions for courts. Yeah.
And I will add to Jacques, in the group of companies in which we work, we also say and recommend that they must have binding corporate rules. So even within the same group of companies, the French subsidiary shouldn't apply the law of the Emirates mother company. It should have her own rules of engagement, and the mother company must comply, and respect these rules. So on a different scale. Ahmed, do you need to add something?
Yeah, like Nestle, when you go, for example, for Nestle, they have different, they are operating in many countries. Like McDonald's, they will never be able to define one policy for the type of the burgers that we'll use they will never be able to unify across the world. So, of course, they will adhere to each country regulation and culture, of course. Yeah.
Thank you. We will take the last questions. I think the last question, yes. And we will be concluding with the participants, the panelists. It's not working. We hear you.
Thank you very much. I'm Mohammed. I'm from Morocco. I work in insurance and financial services in Salam Alliance, which is a major player in Africa. We are present in more than 30 countries. So you are complaining about regulators in Europe. As DPOs, I can assure you that as DPO in Africa, we want to hang ourselves because it's another reality. So we are dealing with with dozens of regulators, regional regulators, national regulators, and as a compliance officer, I deal with inspections, visits all the time. So it's just about sharing some insights about our reality in Africa. So our reality is that all our regulators are just copy-pasting all these nice regulations. They're imposing these regulations to us, who are in a different level, because in Africa we still need to grow, we still need to make profit, to make business. It's not as mature as in Europe. And of course, it's a big battle between the compliance officers, the risk managers, even the auditors, and the business, because we're far behind all these matters and all these subjects and teams. So when we deal with the regulations, it's always it's not the priority of the business, of the CEOs, of the committees, etc. So we have to convince them to deal with all these matters and all these regulations and all these very, very heavy requirements, because it costs a lot of money. We sometimes, or most of the times, we need very expensive tools that we need to implement, and with all the costs in terms of time, in terms of budgets, in terms of capacity, etc. So
what is your question, please? Because
no, it's just some insight and some.
Because we have to close. Sorry.
I will add to your insight that's why Jacques talked about being supported psychologically. The DPO, France Association of DPO, put in place.
And you're not so far behind, because I think all the consultants here know that it's quite difficult to convince our clients and to explain that they have to do it, that it costs money, and
yes.
I think we have the same battle.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jacques.
So we will conclude. Thank you.